The first time I caught someone in a lie, I was 11 years old. My mother had just told my father that the grocery money went to bills. I watched her eyes drift left, watched her fingers find the hem of her blouse. 3 days later, I found the receipt for a spa treatment tucked inside her romance novel. I never said anything. I just started watching. 22 years later, I watch for a living. If you've ever been the family ATM, the fixer, the one expected to sacrifice silently, this story is for you. What happened in that courtroom? I still can't believe it myself. Stay until the end. My name is Ashley Cole. I'm 33, a private investigator, and the woman my family trained to disappear into the background of every photograph. I find people who don't want to be found. I catch spouses who work late at hotels instead of offices. I trace money that vanishes into offshore accounts and gambling debts. I notice the small things. The pause before an answer. The hand that touches a wedding ring when the lie comes out. The micro-expression that flashes across a face like lightning, there and gone before most people register it existed. In my family, these skills made me dangerous. So they made me useful instead. The fixer. The cleaner. The wallet with legs. For 7 years, I paid for my younger sister's medical degree, tuition, rent, textbooks with stickers still on the plastic, exam fees, a prep course that cost more than my car. I caught overdraft charges and cell phone bills and an apartment deposit that bounced because her landlord was running a scam. I told myself it was an investment. When Nora becomes a doctor, I'd think while eating instant noodles at midnight, this will all have been worth it. I learned to live lean. Boots from discount stores. A car that rattled like a percussion section. Side cases for cash when clients paid late. Surveillance gigs that froze my fingers during January stakeouts. My mother called me resourceful when she needed something. She called me obsessive when I needed a boundary. My father called it being strong. In our house, strong always meant silent. Strong meant paying. Strong meant smiling while your sister posted photos of her apartment, the one you funded, with captions about grinding and sacrifice. Her sacrifice. Never mine. The night everything cracked open started in my mother's kitchen. Fake marble counters. Refrigerator humming like a nervous throat. I'd driven over with groceries because she'd texted that they could use help with dinner. Translation. Bring food, cook food, then leave before dessert. I was chopping onions when Nora swept in. Fresh white coat draped over her arm like a superhero cape. She'd just received it for the ceremony the next day, but she was already wearing it around the house. Take tomorrow off, my mother said to me without looking up from her phone. Nora needs you to drive her downtown. White coat ceremony. I already planned to go. I kept chopping. Cleared my whole afternoon. Nora flipped through mail on the counter like she owned the surface of the earth. You'll be on time, right? Don't pull your PI thing where you go ghost. I've never missed anything of yours. She still didn't look at me. You miss a lot, Ashley. You just hide it by paying. The knife paused. I felt the sting behind my eyes and blamed the onions. Onion tears are convenient like that. They give you permission. My mother added something then, almost gently, like sliding a blade under a knot you're pretending isn't there. Your only job is to sacrifice. That's your place in this family. I set the knife down. Carefully. Precisely. My job. You know what I mean. Her eyes were soft. Her voice was a closed door. You're good at support, Ashley. Not at being center stage. Let Nora shine. My sister finally looked at me. A clinical smile. The same one I'd later see her use on patients she didn't particularly like. It's not that complicated, she said. You were made for the background. Something inside me tilted. Like a picture frame hanging crooked. Like the moment you realize the foundation has been cracked for years and you just kept hanging curtains over it. I wanted to say 100 things. I said nothing. I wiped the cutting board. Bagged the onion halves. Finished cooking dinner while they talked about residency matches and future practices and how Nora's life was finally beginning. Smile tomorrow, I told myself. Clap for her. Swallow it. She earned this. But she hadn't earned it alone. And somewhere beneath 7 years of receipts, I'd started keeping a different kind of ledger. An invisible one. A record of every time I'd been told my place was behind the camera. Grandpa Henry died 6 days later. The group chat lit up like a siren. Nora, we'll do the inheritance hearing after my residency match. Timing matters. Mom, Ashley can file the papers. Me, okay? That was my first mistake. Saying okay. The second was believing I still understood the rules. Grandpa wasn't rich. He had a paid-off house with a sagging porch, a lake cabin 2 hours north, a modest investment account, and a 1958 Omega watch he wound every time he told a long story. He also had a soft spot for me and a sharp intolerance for lies. He'd once told me, "Nobody can fake the sound of an honest no." I didn't understand it then. I'd understand it soon. The will was read on a rainy Tuesday. Conference room that smelled like toner and artificial air freshener. A lawyer with half-moon glasses who'd clearly seen every variety of family implosion. Grandpa left the lake cabin to Nora and me jointly. For peace, the document said. He left the house to me, the watch to me. The investments split 60-40 in my favor with a note that made the lawyer pause before reading aloud, in recognition of services rendered. There was also a sealed letter with my name on it. I didn't open it there, but I felt its weight like a hand on my shoulder. Mom's smile stayed frozen, but her eyes went cold. Dad asked the lawyer how flexible the language was. Nora made a joke about buying a decent coffee machine for the cabin. Then she looked at the actual numbers, the value of the house, the investment accounts, and went quiet. That night, someone created a new family group chat, one without me in it. I saw the screenshots later, forwarded by a cousin who still owed me for finding her biological father. Mom, Ashley will give up the house. She has to. Nora, she loves control. She'll make it about the watch instead. Dad, we'll handle it. Our girl is sentimental. She'll fold. Our girl. Like I was a pet they'd trained to roll over. The floor beneath me shifted again. But this time, I didn't look for curtains. I started looking for evidence. 3 days after the will reading, Nora called. Hey. Her voice was casual. Light. The voice she used when she wanted something without asking for it directly. You should sign a quitclaim on the house. It's cleaner that way. I was sitting in my car outside a motel, waiting for a man to emerge with someone who wasn't his wife. My job. The ugly kind. A quitclaim, I repeated. I'll pay you out when I'm settled. The house makes more sense for me, Ashley. I'll need the equity to start my practice. How much would you pay? We'll figure it out. Casual again. Breezy. Like we were discussing who would bring the salad to Thanksgiving. Just do the right thing. You don't even want a house. I do, I said. I want the house. Silence. 3 seconds. I counted. Don't be selfish. Her voice cooled. Grandpa wanted what was best for me. He wrote it down. He wrote down that the house goes to me. That's literally what he wrote. You're obsessed with rules because you don't understand love. That one landed. A clean hit between the ribs. But I'd learned something in 7 years of paying for someone who never said thank you. Pain doesn't mean you're wrong. Sometimes it just means someone found your weak spot. Let's talk after your graduation, I said. We can figure it out then. She hung up without saying goodbye. 2 weeks later, I got served. The process server was apologetic about it. Young guy, maybe 22, holding an envelope like it was contaminated. He'd probably served 100 people, but something about my face made him hesitate. Sorry, he muttered, and jogged back to his car. I opened the envelope standing on my porch, the same porch Grandpa used to sit on while winding his watch. Nora had filed a petition to contest the will. She'd also filed a separate claim for restitution of family support funds, money she claimed I owed her because I'd unduly influenced Grandpa during a period of cognitive decline. I read it twice. Unduly influenced. Cognitive decline. The attached evidence was almost impressive. Photos of me leaving Grandpa's house with folders in my hand. Screenshots of texts I'd sent him. Can I swing by with those forms? And I'll bring lunch tomorrow. Normal messages. Caretaking messages. Reframed as proof of manipulation. They'd even included copies of the tuition checks I'd written with Nora's tuition in the memo line. Somehow, in her lawyer's argument, my paying her bills became evidence that I was controlling. I laughed. Then I stopped laughing. Then I called her. She picked up on the second ring. "Court," she said, like she was ordering coffee. "You'll be fine. You're suing me. It's not personal. It's just the cleanest way. The judge will understand." "The cleanest way to steal a house you weren't left? You can afford a lawyer." She sighed. "Don't be dramatic. Nora, I paid your rent for 7 years. I caught your overdrafts. I bought your textbooks. And now you're claiming I manipulated our grandfather. You did manipulate him." Her voice rose for the first time. "You were always over there. Always doing things for him. You made yourself indispensable so he'd cut me out. I was there because someone had to be. You were too busy with school. School that I paid for. That's exactly what I mean." She was nearly shouting now. "You use money to control people. You used it to control me, and then you used it to control Grandpa. This lawsuit is just. It's correction. It's restoring balance. Balance. Your only job is to sacrifice." The words came out cold and measured. "That's your place in this family. You don't get to suddenly decide you want more." Click. I stood in my kitchen for a long time after. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a dog barked at nothing. I walked to my desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was an envelope, thick, ugly, rubber-banded like a brick. 7 years of receipts. Bank transfers. Loan statements. Every check with tuition in the memo line. And one thing Nora hadn't thought I'd keep. I slid the envelope into my safe. Then I sat down in the dark and let myself feel something I'd been avoiding since I was 11 years old. Rage. Clean, bright, uncomplicated rage. The next weeks were preparation. My friend Eva agreed to represent me. We'd known each other since high school, back when I was the girl who could find anyone's locker combination, and she was the girl who could argue anyone into the ground. "This is insane," she said, flipping through Nora's filing. "She's claiming you brainwashed a 90-year-old man while simultaneously paying her bills? That's not a legal argument. That's a soap opera. She thinks I'll fold. She thinks I'll give up the house to make it stop. Will you?" I looked at the watch on my wrist. Grandpa's watch. Ticking like a heartbeat. "No." Eva smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who loved to fight. "Good. Let's get to work." We built the case piece by piece. Bank records. Transfer receipts. Loan documents showing my name on debt that paid for her education. Text messages where my mother asked me to help Nora out with rent, with fees, with deposits. I tracked down a video I'd almost forgotten about. Something I'd filmed 2 years before Grandpa died. We'd been in his kitchen. Nora was there off-screen, talking about her future practice. Grandpa had looked at the camera, looked at me, and said, clear as morning, "Sweetheart, I'm proud of you. When you're a doctor, you'll pay Ashley back every dollar. We'll write it down if it helps you remember." Nora had laughed. "Sure, Grandpa." I'd forgotten about it. She was counting on that. She was counting on me being the person who forgets, who forgives, who pays and never asks for receipts. But I'm a private investigator. I find things that are buried. I notice the pauses people hope I'll miss. And I never throw away evidence. The hearing was set for a Thursday morning. I laid my suit out the night before, the only suit I own, saved for funerals and clients who pay in person. I didn't sleep. I sat on my kitchen floor with the evidence spread around me like a map of betrayal. 7 years of canceled checks. 7 years of thank you texts with heart emojis followed by requests for more. 7 years of being told my place was in the background. My job was to sacrifice. My purpose was to make someone else's life possible. And 1 letter from a dead man who saw me clearly when no one else bothered to look. I opened it for the first time. Ashley, it read. If anyone ever tells you your only job is to sacrifice, tell them no. That word is yours. Use it. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my pocket. Tomorrow, I'd use it. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. I arrived 40 minutes early because that's what I do. Preparation is armor. Information is a weapon. My father taught me that without meaning to every time he told me to be strong. He was really telling me to be ready for people who wouldn't be kind. I wore my funeral suit. Black, well-fitted, serious. The watch was on my wrist, its ticking steady against my pulse. Eva met me in the lobby with coffee and a look that said she was ready to draw blood. "They're already here," she said. "Whole family. Your mom's wearing pearls." "Of course she is." "Nora looks nervous." "That's good." I took the coffee. It was bitter and perfect. She should be. We walked to the courtroom together. In the hallway outside, my family had arranged themselves like a portrait. Mom smoothing Nora's hair like she was still a child. Dad standing with his hands in his pockets, looking at his shoes. Nora on her phone, thumb scrolling, jaw tight. They looked up when I approached. "Ashley." My father stepped forward. "We can still settle this like adults. We're in a courthouse, Dad. This is pretty adult." Mom's eyes flickered to my suit, to the briefcase in my hand, to the watch on my wrist. Her mouth thinned. "That watch should go to Nora. He promised it to her when she was little. He left it to me in writing. 6 months ago. Things change. Not his signature." Nora finally looked up from her phone. "Try not to be theatrical in there, okay? This is already embarrassing enough." I almost laughed. "Almost." "I'll do my best," I said. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Benches like church pews. A clock on the wall that ticked too loudly. The judge was a woman in her 60s with half-moon glasses and the expression of someone who had seen families rip themselves apart over houses with peeling paint and watches that didn't keep perfect time. Her name was Judge Morrison. I'd researched her. 30 years on the bench. Known for sharp questions and low tolerance for theatrics. Perfect. Nora's attorney went first. Expensive suit, expensive haircut, expensive words. He painted a picture of a scheming older sister who'd isolated an elderly man in his final years, who'd inserted herself into financial decisions, who'd used support payments as leverage for an inheritance. Miss Cole, he said, gesturing to me, conditioned her generosity on access. She positioned herself as indispensable while systematically undermining my client's relationship with their grandfather. I watched the judge's face. Her eyebrows didn't move. That was either very good or very bad. The attorney submitted exhibits. Photos of me at Grandpa's house. Text logs showing how often I visited. Screenshots of messages where I'd offered to help with paperwork, with groceries, with appointments. Evidence of care, reframed as evidence of control. Nora took the stand briefly. Her voice was calm, clinical, the voice she'd used to deliver a difficult diagnosis. "I was in medical school," she said. "I didn't have time to visit as often as I wanted. Ashley took advantage of that. She made herself Grandpa's whole world. And the financial support she provided during your education? She held it over me. She used it to make me feel obligated. And she used that same tactic on our grandfather, making him feel he owed her something." I watched my mother nod along. My father looked at the floor. The judge made a note. Then she turned to Eva. "Counsel, your response?" Eva stood. She'd been waiting for this. "Your Honor, my client has a different story to tell. One with receipts." I took the stand. Eva walked me through it carefully. "Where did your money go for 7 years?" "To Nora." "Why?" "Because she wanted to be a doctor, and I believed in her." Nora snorted softly from her seat. My mother glared at me like I'd insulted something holy. "I have documentation," I said. "Every transfer. Every payment. Every check with tuition or rent or exam fees in the memo line." Eva handed the first exhibit to the clerk. A thick envelope, rubber-banded, ugly with truth. "This represents 7 years of financial support," Eva said. Exposed. Exposed. My client's bank records showing systematic payments for her sister's education. Not loans. Gifts. Given freely, with no expectation of inheritance. The judge flipped through the pages. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "There's more," I said. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a second envelope. Smaller. Cream-colored. Yellowed at the edges. "This is a letter my grandfather left for Nora. I found it in his desk after he died. I never opened it. I thought about burning it, but I think she should read it." The judge accepted the letter. She handed it to the bailiff, who handed it to Nora. Nora's fingers were careful as she broke the seal. She scanned the page and froze. Color rose to her cheeks. Her attorney leaned in, whispering urgently. She shook her head. Your Honor, Eva continued, we also submit Exhibit C. She slid a stack of screenshots across the table. These are messages from the petitioner to friends and family members. In one, she writes that keeping tuition loans in Ashley's name was safer because, and I quote, I can always guilt her if something happens. In another, sent after the will was read, she states her intention to scare Ashley with a lawsuit so she gives up the house. Nora's attorney objected. Eva laid the foundation. The messages were authenticated. The judge looked at Nora. Counsel, does your client contest the authenticity of these messages? Whispered conference. Then, we reserve, Your Honor. Noted. I wasn't finished. Your Honor, may I read one line from my grandfather's letter to me? She nodded. I pulled the letter from my pocket. My hands were steady. My voice was clear. It says, Ashley, if anyone ever tells you your only job is to sacrifice, tell them no. Nora rolled her eyes. He wrote things like that all the time. He loved his little sayings. Judge Morrison turned to her. Miss Cole, would you like to summarize the letter you just received? The one from your grandfather. Nora folded it once. Twice. Like she could make it disappear. It's private. You filed a lawsuit claiming undue influence. This is discovery by any other name. Silence. Long, heavy, damning. Finally, Nora spoke. He wrote that the house should be Ashley's. Because Ashley doesn't ask for things. Her voice cracked. And because I have been given enough. The courtroom went silent. I could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing. My mother whispered, that's not what he meant. I pulled out my phone. One more thing, Your Honor. A video. I played it on the screen. Grandpa in his kitchen. The watch on his wrist. His voice clear as a bell. Sweetheart, I'm proud of you. When you're a doctor, you'll pay Ashley back every dollar. We'll write it down if it helps you remember. The timestamp glowed in the corner. 2 years before he died. Nora said that was a joke. We joked like that. The judge leaned back. She looked at the video. At the letter. At Nora. Then she did something I'd never seen a judge do. She laughed. Not cruelly. Not mockingly. Just the soft, exhausted laugh of someone who'd finally heard the most brazen lie delivered with a perfectly straight face. Counsel, she said, composing herself, your client's position is untenable. I suggest you take 5 minutes to discuss dismissal with prejudice. Unless she'd prefer to proceed to trial and pay everyone's fees for the privilege. She looked at me. Her voice softened. Miss Cole, your sister owes you a debt. But I suspect you already knew that. The gavel didn't fall because there wasn't one. But something in me did. A rope finally snapping. A weight finally lifting. A word finally forming in my mouth. No. We settled in the hallway. Settled is generous. Eva drafted a 1-page agreement on a bench while a bailiff ate a muffin 3 feet away. Nora withdrew everything. She agreed not to contest the will. She agreed to stop contacting my clients. Yes, she'd tried that too, sending concerned sister emails questioning my mental stability. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue sanctions. My mother tried to spin it immediately. This was a misunderstanding. A family fight. These things happen. I looked at her. Really looked. Saw the woman who'd told me my place was to sacrifice. Who'd handed me a knife and a cutting board and expected me to keep chopping while she planned my erasure. You told me my only job was to sacrifice, I said. She flinched. I was upset. I didn't mean. You were honest. That's the problem. You meant every word. Nora stood apart from us, Grandpa's letter folded so small it could fit in a pillbox. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You humiliated me, she said quietly. You sued me. I thought. She stopped. Started again. I thought you'd just give in. Like always. I know. That's why you did it. The video was, her voice broke. You kept that for years. You were waiting to use it against me. I forgot I had it. But you knew it existed. You knew what Grandpa said. And you sued me anyway, hoping I wouldn't remember. She had no answer for that. My father suggested brunch. Eva made a face like she'd smelled something rotting. I said I had to get back to work. I drove to the house. Grandpa's house. My house now. It wasn't big. The front steps sagged. The porch light switch crackled when you flipped it. The windows needed new caulking, and the kitchen faucet dripped a slow, steady rhythm. I sat on the floor of the empty living room with the watch in my palm and the keys cutting into my thigh through my pocket. The silence felt different than any silence I'd known before. Not empty, just unoccupied, waiting for me to fill it with something that was mine. That night, I put the 7-year spreadsheet into a folder labeled closed. Then I did something reckless. I ordered a pizza with extra everything. No coupon. No justification. I turned my phone face down and ate 3 slices before the guilt could catch up. The guilt never came. The weeks after were quiet. I replaced the safe under my bed with a bolted one in the hall closet. Moved my case files there. Fixed the serpentine belt in my car that had been complaining for months. I took one new client, a woman whose ex had taken their dog and vanished. We found them 2 states away. The ex tried to run. The dog didn't want to go with him. When I handed the leash back, the woman cried into the dog's fur for 10 minutes. I didn't fill the last hour. People who knew my sister sent messages. Some angry. How could she? Some soothing. She's under stress. My favorite came from an attending who'd worked with her during overnight shifts. She's brilliant, he wrote, but she's never had to apologize for anything in her life. That sounded right. Nora tried a different tactic a month later. She showed up on my porch with coffee and eyes that said she was ready to play the good sister if I'd just agree to forget. Can we talk? She asked through the screen door. About what? Starting over. Being a family again. I'm not doing amnesia, Nora. I paid you back, she said, small. No, you dropped the lawsuit. That's not paying back. That's stopping the bleeding. Same thing. You can come in when you understand the difference. She left the coffee on the step. I poured it out an hour later, cold and bitter and unwanted. The house started feeling like mine in small ways. I found Grandpa's screwdriver set in a drawer, next to pennies and rubber bands and a photograph of my grandmother that I'd never seen before. I fixed the sag in the front steps. Replaced the porch light with a motion sensor, not because I needed it, but because cheesy security measures comfort me. Occupational hazard. I opened a savings account labeled Cabin Fund. Texted Nora one line, let me know when you want to discuss your half of the cabin expenses. She replied with a heart emoji and nothing else. Fine. I called the loan servicer. With my portion of the inheritance, I paid off the loans that had been in my name for 7 years, loans that paid for someone else's dream while I ate instant noodles and drove a car that sounded like a washing machine. Watching the balance hit zero felt like cutting off a weight I'd carried so long, I'd forgotten it wasn't part of my body. Work changed. I stopped saying yes to cases that paid cash, but felt like poison. The landlords who wanted all the dirt you can find on tenants they wanted gone, the companies looking for leverage against whistleblowers. I took more custody cases, elder abuse investigations, people who needed someone to believe them when no one else would. Turns out I'm good at listening to people who were trained to think they didn't deserve to be heard. A month after the hearing, Nora emailed. Residency is brutal. I'm on nights. Can we talk when things calm down? I typed no and deleted it. Then I wrote, I'm not available to be a reset button. We can talk after you sent me a plan to repay what you owe. What you promised Grandpa. I attached a spreadsheet. Columns, amounts, dates. Interest at 0% because I wanted to be able to sleep at night. She didn't reply. 2 weeks later, a transfer appeared in my account. $500. Memo. First. Then $300 more the next paycheck. Then nothing for a while. Then $1,000 after an extra shift with a memo that just said, sorry, car trouble. It wasn't enough to fix everything. It was enough to prove she knew. Mom sent a group text on my birthday. Balloon emojis. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove to the lake cabin alone. Sat on the dock with the watch ticking on my wrist and the water moving like breath. I read Grandpa's letter again. I said it out loud, to no one, to everyone, to myself. No. It felt like the cleanest word in the English language. Here's what I didn't expect. Life after no is louder. Food tastes better. A stupid joke from a mechanic can make you grin all the way to your car. Friends you kept making excuses not to see become anchors instead of obligations. I stopped being the woman who lives on hold. I started answering my own calls. I thought closure would be a speech. Instead, it was an ordinary afternoon. The mail slot clacking, an envelope landing on my rug. Inside, a cashier's check for $8,000. A note in Nora's handwriting for the spring. I'll keep going. No hearts. No apology. Just a ledger entry that admitted what she denied in court. I stood there a long time. Then I deposited the check in the cabin fund and made myself a grilled cheese that would horrify a nutritionist. Ate it on the porch while the motion light clicked on and off every time a moth tried to own the night. People still tell me I'm so strong. They mean you kept paying even when it hurt. But strength isn't carrying other people's furniture until your knees lock. Strength is putting the furniture down. Strength is locking your door. Strength is saying no and not explaining until your throat bleeds. My mother still sends group texts. Sometimes I read them. Sometimes I don't. My father calls occasionally. Last week, he mentioned their lawn needs work. There's a service you can call for that, I said. He laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. We ended the call politely. Like neighbors. I see Nora sometimes. Post-shift mornings, stumbling out of the hospital with paper bag eyes. Once, she saw me across the street. She lifted a hand. I lifted mine. Not a truce. Not a war. A boundary that holds. If you wanted revenge, I'm sorry. The judge's laugh was enough. The rest, the quiet house, the watch ticking, the dog reunited with its owner, the spreadsheet labeled closed, does the work better than any speech ever could. Here's the truth I learned. I'm not a wallet. I'm not a background character. I am not a job description written in someone else's handwriting. I am a person. And my answer is no when no is correct. Here's the promise I made on the dock at sunset with the watch steady on my wrist. I will never again let anyone tell me my only job is to sacrifice. That isn't love. That's theft with manners. I'm done paying to be allowed inside my own family. I have my own keys now. The door opens from my side. Strength isn't suffering in silence. Strength is saying no and meaning it. If this story found you at the right time, it was supposed to. Comment your story below. I read every single one. Follow for more. Share this because someone in your life is still waiting for permission to stop sacrificing. The door opens from your side too.